Hi everyone, welcome to Kate's Hour of Miracles, where I get to talk about miracles. Miracles, everyone's right, and they are natural expressions of love, God's love. So I'm going to be talking for an hour about God's love and maybe even the opposite of God's love, which is a false mind called the ego. I've got a reading today from Disappearance of the Universe, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about that book. But first of all, let's just start off with inviting the Holy Spirit in. So, Holy Spirit, you be in charge. You be in charge of my whole day, my whole life. You be in charge of every thought, of every action that comes from that thought. You be the love that leads me. You be the smile that smiles. You be the love that radiates out. You be the trust that I trust with. Holy Spirit, you are my right mind. You are nothing but my right mind. But you may seem like you are something else outside my mind, and that's okay. But you are my mind. Please direct me. Please help me. Please correct my thinking when it goes off. I surrender to your view always. Amen. And it's really good to practice bringing the Holy Spirit into your day, into your mind. It's every time we do that, it's a surrender to the Holy Spirit. We surrender the ego, our thinking. Really, our thinking is what gets us into trouble because we're thinking on our own. So we're hoping to get to a state of mind where we only think with the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the spirit of the Holy One, who is God. So it's the Holy Spirit is not separate to God. It is a symbol of God that we use through the course. We follow the directions of the course, if that's our path. And the path of the Course in Miracles is that we come to know, first of all, we come to hear that we have a still, small voice within our mind. And if when we start the lessons or what's clearly told to us in the lessons, it's asking us all the time to still our minds and go deep, to go deep within the thoughts of the ego, the chatter, the waves in the ocean, to sink down. I like the analogy of sinking down below the waves. So you can imagine an ocean that's very stormy. It's got lots of waves on the surface, but if you were to dive down, there would be a deep stillness below them. And that's what our mind is like. And in the lessons, Jesus talks about trying to get below the thoughts of the mind, which is the ego thought system, to sink below, and says that we can reach God directly. And that reaching God directly is really the most simple thing to do. We have to have the willingness to sit down and do this. And the ego will give you all sorts of reasons not to do it. I need to get ready to do this, or I need to clean up something, or I need to fix something up, and I don't have time. We need to take time, because it is in the quietness and the silence and this inner work is done, we need to develop a quiet time for us, for going within. So to start off today, I'm going to read one of the lessons at the back of the course. This is a beautiful lesson. I call them the prayers. You can just listen to this. Close your eyes. Today, the peace of God envelops me, and I forget all things except His love. Father, I wake today with miracles correcting my perception of all things. And so begins the day I share with you, as I will share eternity. For time has stepped aside today. I do not seek the things of time, and so I will not look upon them. What I seek today transcends all laws of time and things perceived in time. I would forget all things except your love. I would abide in you and know no laws except your law of love. And I would find the peace which you created for your Son, forgetting all the foolish toys I made as I behold your glory and my own. And when the evening comes today, we will remember nothing but the peace of God. For we will learn today that peace is ours when we forget all things except God's love. It's a beautiful, that's lesson 346, in case I forgot to mention. That's a really beautiful lesson to lead you straight into the heart of God. And this is where we're really getting to, is to choose love over fear, to choose trust over not trusting. We come to a state of mind where we trust the still, small voice to guide us. So eventually we give everything to God. We give our money, we give our time, we give our life, everything in it we give to God. We surrender to God and we join His will. We think we have a will. We think this little separate self has a will. But what we come to see is this little separate self that thinks it has a will. It really is like a toddler with a tantrum. It wants its own way. And even when it gets it, it's not happy for very long. And it throws what it got aside. I came to see in my journey that the ego was a toddler throwing a tantrum. When you watch toddlers, and they move around with toys, and they might snatch a toy off another child to get it just because someone else has got it. They snatch it, they play with it a while, and they toss it away. And then when they eat food, they spit things out, they complain. Don't get me wrong, toddlers are gorgeous. In their true essence, they're beautiful. I've got 2 children and I've got 2 grandchildren. So I think, the Holy Son of God is all I see. But if you can look at, it's a good analogy especially when you see a toddler in a really bad mood. And you say, don't touch that. And they go to put like a knife in an electricity socket or in a toaster, and you say, don't do that. And they want to do it. That's what God's like telling us. Oh. There is a section of the course where he talks about giving a child a pair of scissors. He says that's what we're like. A toddler, a pair of scissors. It's like the toddler thinks it wants that pair of scissors. It has no idea that what it has can hurt it. And that's what our minds are like. We have no idea what can hurt us. And we also, we don't know anything. This is what he says in the course, we have to come to God with empty hands, because we've tried our will, we've tried our way, we've sought for this and we've sought for that. We've sought for love in partners, we've sought for gratification in jobs, we've sought for something maybe in material items in this world. We've saved up and bought them only to either have the ego decide it doesn't like them, like what we've bought or purchased. We start to see that there's nothing in this world that can bring us the love or the contentment that we're seeking. And that's when we start to get an idea that something's amiss. And it can take a while, because what happens is the ego will say, well, it's not there, try this. So the next thing might be go for a holiday. You get on the holiday, there's something wrong there, because the ego mind goes with you. Yeah. The ego allows you to have short bursts of something so that you don't question it, really. But everyone will come on their knees and say there has to be a better way. And then that's when the journey really starts, as we turn to a spiritual path, to God, for another answer. And we hear that the Holy Spirit is a small voice in our minds. And that's something that can become quite unusual, because we're used to hearing communication from what seems to be other bodies. So we have to go within. And the only way we can really hear the voice of God is when we quiet our minds. So we need to really put an effort and have a willingness to quiet and to meditate and to go beyond the ego, so we quieten the ego down. The ego are just our thoughts. As it says in the course, I can only be affected by my thoughts. So I'm only affected by what thoughts are coming into my mind and I'm attaching to or I'm believing. And so meditation is a very good tool in your tool belt on a spiritual path. And it does help. All those things help. Do what you feel to do with your meditation. Don't compare to what anyone else is doing. Just do what's helpful. Find what helps you. Find, you might need to meditate for half an hour, or you might need to meditate for 3 hours. On my journey, I would take a whole weekend. I was working full time. I would get home Friday night, and from Friday night till Sunday night, I would do my own retreat. I think I've mentioned this before. So it's really beautiful to spend a whole weekend going within. And that's what I did this weekend. I have been very busy with groups and one-on-ones, and I had a friend staying with me. It was beautiful, but I was doing a lot of intensive time with people, lots of phone calls, lots of Skypes. So I was finding every day was taken up with holding space, allowing, talking. And I got to Thursday night, and in the course, he says, I'm paraphrasing here, I don't ever get the course, very rarely get the course quotes right. But I'm one of those people that's more interested in practicing and getting the gist of what the course is saying. And I really don't care if I say the quote's right or not, but something along the lines of, come to God and ask for a word or a phrase, or come in silence. And I felt that I needed to come in silence. So on Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, I messaged people that I knew that might want to contact me, and I said, I'm having 3 days in silence. And it was beautiful. It was lovely. I did talk to my partner Kevin a couple of times because he's travelling, and I wanted to check in with him. But my dedication was just silence, quietness. I went for walks on the beach, and I turned my phone off for a lot of that time. And I meditated and dropped into stillness and joined with God and felt this love, this deepening. And it's really like putting gas in my fuel tank so I can be there to hold space for others. And it's really important on your journey, if you are a teacher, to have your quiet time with God and to feel, to just come to God. And just on that phrase where it says, come to God asking for a word or a phrase, or come in silence or quietness, I've used that quite a bit over the last few years. So it is, you can, if you're feeling upset for any reason, you can just say, Holy Spirit, give me a word. You don't have to say it out loud. You can just say, I'd like a word or a phrase. And it'll come into your mind. Something just comes in. And if you repeat it over and over, it will bring you back to peace. Which is beautiful. It really is. So today, I'm going to be talking about the false thought system, this ego. And I'm going to, for a few weeks, do my readings from The Disappearance of the Universe. Now, this book is wonderful. I really only use these books in A Course in Miracles. I did read a little bit outside it, but generally this is my go-to book. And I've got it on my iPhone as a iBook, I think they're called. And when I didn't have the actual book with me, I would be reading it on my phone. I read this book. I've probably read it, I don't know, I thought maybe 20 or 30 times, but I'm not sure. I read it and read it and read it. I would read this and the course together every day for hours, as much as I could. There's a lot in this book, and so if you can get hold of Disappearance of the Universe, if you haven't yet read it, I recommend it highly. It is what Gary Renard calls a can opener to the course. It will help you understand. And it's written in a way, and it's the same as the way Gary gives his workshops and talks. It's peppered with jokes. And it's lovely because it's a conversation between Gary and the two masters. So I'm just going to have a drink. Now, you don't have to believe that Gary was visited by two awakened ascended masters to actually get some benefit in this book. And you don't even need to like Gary. If you start reading this and you don't like the personality of Gary Renard, just keep reading, because the ego will use anything to keep you away from this wonderful book. I actually loved, the minute I read it, I loved Gary's sense of humour. I guess that was just part of my personality. So I love humour and I love wit. And I do have a very funny sense of humour, believe it or not. I'm very witty generally. I don't sort of bring that wit into my recordings, but I used to be known as a very funny person, making jokes. And when I'm around my family, I generally just am the jokester. And my son is especially funny. Him and I have a very similar sense of humour, and he's not on a spiritual path, but we just get together and it's just joke after joke after joke. He's very popular because he's very funny. And what happens is the ego cannot be in a place when you're laughing. So I wouldn't say that my son has no fear in his life. I see the fear, but we have a lot of fun, and my daughter's very funny too. So our get-togethers are very uplifting and light. And my relationship with my son is just beautiful these days. We used to have my mind had some guilt, but that's all gone now. Once you undo the guilt in your mind in regard to your children, it's just wonderful. The relationships can be really free, and you're not projecting the guilt onto them, and they're really beautiful. You don't have to go anywhere to get this love. You don't need to go into a community. You don't need to leave your family. You don't need to leave your job. The Holy Spirit will just repurpose everything. All you need to do is to shift from fear to love. And sometimes you might leave, and there's nothing wrong with that. You might go somewhere, but just know you don't need to. I never moved. I did eventually leave my job after I had the awakening. And I actually went back after the awakening a few months later and went back and did a part-time accounting job. I was called to do that. I didn't make anything of it, because what happens is I just saw that I was giving love and receiving love, and that's what my mind saw. So in this world, we come to see that everything gets repurposed as we get called into the happy dream. It's the real world of love, where everything is love. And I'm just called to be the expression of love, the extension of love. So Gary Renard's book, it's, I don't know how many times I've read it. Maybe it feels like I've read it 30 times. I would suggest you read this book at least 5 to 10 times. And so I absolutely adore this book. It's just, I can't say enough how much it helped my mind open up to this love. And I love that Gary was able to actually publish this book, because he would have, and he did, he talks about in the book, got a lot of flack from it. And his ego could have easily stopped him from publishing this beautiful book. So I believe what I did was I threw myself into this book, and so let's get on with it. I think I've said enough about how much I love it. And I still read it at times, not much, once in a while, mainly because I've had the effect of it. And just talking about the still small voice of the Holy Spirit, that becomes the loudest voice in your mind, and the ego actually becomes the nothing voice. So even though it says it's the still small voice, it can be a very firm, loving guide in your mind. And it is your mind, and it does feel like your voice and your thoughts. And how can you tell the difference? Is how you feel when you listen to that voice. You'll feel when you listen to the Holy Spirit, you trust, and you give your life over, you'll be guided and you'll be free of fear. So I'm going to be reading, I decided today to talk to, so this is from Gary Renard's book, The Disappearance of the Universe, and it's this chapter is called The Egos Plan, and it's on the starts at the bottom of page 162. And this is Persa. We've already established that the universe you see is symbolic of one thought, that you have separated yourself from God, presented in many forms, and that you feel secretly terrified and enormously guilty over the separation. On this new level of the world of bodies, the thought of separation has been projected, seemingly outside yourself. Now the substitute causes of sin, the projected responsibility for guilt, and the many imagined reasons for fear of any kind can be found somewhere outside of you. And of course, other people see everything as being outside of them. Once you understand that, it isn't too hard to see the acting out of separation and the projection of unconscious guilt at work in the world every day. The ego has set up people and groups against each other for its entire script of the history of the universe, guaranteeing the acting out of separation in individual relationships in some way. Only when everyone has awakened from the dream will the thought of separation be over. Even in joining, there is still separation in this world. To bring this about, the ego made special relationships. As mentioned before, with duality, you have special love and special hate. Love is now selective rather than all-encompassing, and so it is not really love, but passes for it. When you appear to enter an incarnation, you are immediately part of some kind of family, which means you are not a part of other families, economic classes, cultures, ethnic groups, and countries. You are already different than others in many ways. You even have competition between families, parts of families, and individuals within families. The special relationships within your family, whether biological, adopted, or in a foster home, may be good or bad, loving or hateful, resulting in either special love or some kind of victimization. Everyone who dreams their way into this world sees themselves as a body from the beginning, and thus a very special body indeed. Thoughts of victim and victimization cannot help but be seen from this point of view, resulting in the unaware projection of your sin and guilt, which are hidden by walls of forgetfulness onto something or someone. Now, all the secret sins and hidden hates you have about yourself are seen elsewhere. The fact that you are experiencing an unreal dream projection from your own forgotten mind is completely shut out from your awareness. Other people and outside events, or your own body and brain's misguided and thus seemingly guilty actions are the perceived cause of the endless series of fears and situations, big and small, that you call your life. As Jesus teaches you in the Course, while comparing the dreams you have in bed at night with the dreams you have during the day, and this is from the Course, it is the figures in the dream and what they do that seem to make the dream. You do not realise that you are making them act out for you, for if you did, the guilt would not be theirs, and the illusion of satisfaction would be gone. In dreams, these figures are not obscure. You seem to waken and the dream is gone. Yet what you fail to recognise is that what caused the dream has not gone with it. Your wish to make another world that is not real remains with you. And what you seem to waken to is but another form of this same world you see in dreams. All your time is spent in dreaming. Your sleeping and your waking dreams have different forms, and that is all. Their content is the same. So this is Gary. So in the illusion, people project their denied guilt onto others. Not only are they unaware that they're doing it, but on top of that, because there's really nobody out there anyway, what they're really doing is recycling the guilt within their own unconscious mind, keeping it and the ego intact. I take it that's what Jesus meant when he said, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get." That's true because people are really judging and condemning their own images of themselves. This leads to a continuation as a seemingly guilty ego from lifetime to lifetime, because what caused the dream of guilt and the need to escape it. Purser. Superb, my brother. Don't forget the ego adds the sly trick of having just as much projection in special love relationships as special hate relationships, thus helping to ensure the continued dynamic of recycling guilt. If you look hard enough, which most people won't, then you'll see that love in this world is always qualified in some way. If those qualifications are not met, watch out. Now we come to another one of the ego's favourite devices for maintaining its vast illusion. Tell me, Gary, since you have a show business background, what does the illusionist do to trick the audience at a magic show? One thing is to hide the illusion by diverting the attention of the audience someplace else while the trick is being done. Arten, yes, the ego is a master illusionist, and one of the ways it diverts your attention from the moment you're born is by giving you, and this calls for a drum roll please, problems. These problems are usually right in front of you, and the answers to these problems have to be found out there in the world and utilised. It doesn't matter if it's your own survival that's the problem, or something as seemingly lofty as attaining world peace. The problems and the answers are always somewhere out there in the world or the universe. The truth is out there, says your generation. It doesn't matter if they're talking about extraterrestrials or any of the ego's other substitute mysteries and problems. For the real truth is not out there, because the real problem is not out there. But you keep looking out there, never realising that, as the Course says about the ego, and this is a quote from the Course, it dictates then can be summed up simply as seek and do not find. While you are seeking, the more things change for you, the more they stay the same, and your buried globs of guilt over the seeming separation remain in place. I understand you actually got to see your own unconscious guilt symbolised for you one morning when the Holy Spirit made that adjustment on your eyes while you were in bed. So this is what they're referring to. Gary had an experience one morning when he woke up and he was looking through his eyes and he could see patches of light and patches of darkness. And they're referring to this episode that he writes about in his book. And Gary says, yeah, that was pretty far out. It wasn't very encouraging, but the light behind it was. And I know now that I'm being healed, and that's encouraging. So something just there, it is encouraging as we go along and we do the forgiveness. We realise that we've projected our guilt and our fear onto the characters. And as he says in the Course, I've given all the meaning it has for me. So we need to go back to the meaning. First of all, we have to notice the meaning and then give it to the Holy Spirit and say, you know, I don't know. This is forgiveness. Forgiveness is forgiving ourselves for our misperceptions. So back to the book. Just so I know I'm getting the Course's teaching here, the first or metaphysical level that the Course is given on, which you were talking about during your last visit, involves perception. The second level, or level of the body, world and universe that you're talking about now, also involves perception. One of the main differences between them is that this second level I'm experiencing now is an end result of the collective denial and massive projection that took place on the first or metaphysical level, which resulted in the universe and time and space that I now see as being outside of myself, in order to have a defence against my hidden guilt, my fear, and of course God, of whom I'm erroneously terrified and trying to run away from. Except I'm not in touch with that because it's unconscious. So a lot of, he talks about, on the other page, hidden secret sins and hidden hatreds. Now he's talking about the fear of God. And as we see, it's in the unconscious mind. So we're not conscious of it, but we can become more and more conscious of these things in our mind. And this is the journey. We just allow these things to become more conscious. So our journey is really to practice watching our mind and seeing what's in it. And we have to become still, generally, if we can spend some time, as I said before, in meditation and stillness, it then allows us for our quiet mind to actually notice the thoughts of hatred that are coming up, and we can catch them, so we can see a little bit more of our unconscious mind become more conscious. So back to the book, and I'm on page 166 now. The seeming causes of my fears, like pain and death, are now seen as things outside of me, although the fear is still in me. In fact, you could say the contents of my own mind are now perceived symbolically as being all around me instead of inside me. That's why I'm mindless, because my memory is lost. The ego's plan to keep itself going is through blame, both subtle and obvious, attack, condemnation, and the continuing projection and recycling of my guilt. This in turn tricks me into thinking I'm getting rid of guilt when what I'm really doing is holding on to it, keeping it in my own unconscious, keeping the whole vicious cycle going. Purser, you said a mouthful accurately, my brother. We should get a gold star for your forehead. Would the star have 5 points or 6? Knock it off. Religious jokes are our job. Purser, the good news is the Holy Spirit's dynamic of forgiveness undoes the ego at both levels. The atonement principle undoes denial and projection at the level of your mind by forgiving what you perceive, and the Holy Spirit undoes the denial and projection at the metaphysical level of your mind at the same time, as well as undoing the whole idea of separation right along with you. You must practice forgiveness on the level where your experience is. Yes, you have to understand the metaphysics of the Course in order to understand what you're doing, but your forgiveness is done here, which means you should be practical and respectful of other people and their experience. In other words, when you're living your everyday life, be kind. Your job isn't to correct others. Just help the Holy Spirit clean up your wrong mind by switching to your right mind, and then leave the rest to Him. So they're really pointing out all we need to do is notice when we go out of peace and ask the Holy Spirit to join us. Now, we do have to understand the metaphysics of the Course in Miracles. It's very important to read over the sections of the Course that talk about how our mind, what is in our mind, or the truth in our mind is asleep. And there's a false mind, a guilty mind that's projecting its guilt out to create images that we see. So Gary says, so on this level, when I'm thinking with the ego, that's wrong-mindedness. And when I'm thinking with the Holy Spirit, that's right-mindedness. Percy, yes. The you who is doing the thinking is you as mind, not as a human brain or body. The Course is addressed to the part of your mind that needs to choose between the ego and the Holy Spirit. So this is a really important point here that, and I know this is, I got this from a Ken Wapnick video when I first started to try to understand what the Course was about. He said we have a decision maker in our mind, and then we've also got the ego's thought system and the Holy Spirit's point of view, which corrects. So when he says in the Course the ego always speaks first, so generally we're going to get some egoic thought coming in, we're going to believe it, and then we feel ourselves upset. That was my little dog. You heard a little noise. So we have to choose for the Holy Spirit. So we just notice when we get upset, notice when our mind's not peaceful, and we choose for the Holy Spirit. And the Course says that the brain never thinks. And this is something really interesting because we're brought up to believe that the brain thinks. The brain cannot think. The only thing, if you really get to see your thoughts, is you will feel, really study your thoughts. You'll come to see that it's something that comes in to your mind and you believe it. It's not generated by grey matter. Grey matter in the brain is part of the body, which is part of the projected image. So the projected image does nothing. This body is a projected image. It doesn't have any substance as such. So what's thinking is the ego's thoughts, and it feels like these are my thoughts because there's an idea that these thoughts say this is my body. So we have to work where we're at, as they said. You have to start where you're at, but slowly you'll be unwound back to an idea that I seem to be in this body, but I'm not this body. It's mainly worked with your mind. If you can really work with where your thoughts are and get back to just noticing your thoughts. Anyway, I'll get back to the course because I'm starting to explain it, but this might explain it a little bit better. The most important thing is that each day is devoted to, I guess the course is devoted to miracles, but your devotion is the miracle in your mind. So let's devote each day to the healing of our mind. And that is the miracle, because our mind is fearful and we're going to be changing to a mind of love. So really, each day is devoted to the miracles. So the course is addressed to the part of your mind that needs to choose between the ego and the Holy Spirit. So there's a part of our mind that's the decision maker. We'll talk more about that the next couple of times so you can learn how to do it right and save yourself a few thousand years of trial and error and all the corresponding incarnations. You'll be amazed at how simple it is once it all becomes a part of your attitude. It's just really forming a habit of deciding for the Holy Spirit rather than the ego. We'll be breaking it down temporarily into steps, but eventually the steps merge into one attitude. The end result is the peace of God. Oh, that's nice. We've already emphasised that everyone, and thus yourself, is innocent, because what you are saying is not true. How can what you're saying be true if the separation from God never occurred? If the separation never occurred, then how can what you are saying have any more of an effect on you than it had on Jesus? Arten, something you should always try to remember is that by keeping you looking outside of yourself, the ego prevents you from really looking at its thought system. As we already said, the Course teaches that illusions are projected by not looking at them. We're going to take a brief look at the nature of the ego thought system, not to scare you, but just so you'll understand that although it may be ugly, it is not you. And that's a really good point. It is not you. You can come to see, especially if you've come to already experience being the observer of your thoughts. That's a really good step on the spiritual path, is just to get that witnessing the thoughts, that there's some realization in your mind that you are not your thoughts. And when that comes in, that's a really big step into shifting away from believing all these thoughts that come in. So I'll just read that again. We're going to take a brief look at the nature of the ego thought system, not to scare you, but just so you'll understand that although it may be ugly, it is not you. So you is the Holy Son of God, the love of God, the abstract mind of love. So that's what we are. We're spirit. The way to get this is by looking at it with the Holy Spirit. The ego doesn't want you to look at it. The ego is afraid of your power to choose against it. If you're looking at it, then you must be doing it with the Holy Spirit. If you're joined with Him, then you're no longer in your wrong mind, but looking at things with your right mind. You're no longer an effect instead of a cause. You're no longer alone as a guilty individual, but reconnected to yourself, and that's self with a capital S. Look at the ego without judgment or fear. If it's not real, then it's not something to fear, but it is something to forgive. Thus, in order to forgive yourself as well as others, you're going to have to be willing to look at the ways you use people and kill them off in your mind. That's not really you, but it is part of the system you unconsciously think is you. Incidentally, when it comes to the illusion of time, you should understand that sin equals the past, guilt equals the present, and fear equals the future. Of course, it could be the very immediate future or the distant future. It really doesn't matter. As examples, say you're being robbed at gunpoint and you think you might be killed. Or maybe you're worried about your retirement in 20 years' time from now. Those things are different in form, but really the same. The real reason you're fearful is because you believe you've sinned. If you didn't believe in the ego system, you couldn't be afraid. You may think that not being afraid would be bad for your effectiveness and survival. Yet when it is that you're most effective, yet when is it that you're most effective? When you're afraid or when you're not? You should also recognize that fear, sin, rage, guilt, jealousy, anger, pain, worry, resentment, revenge, loathing, envy, and all other negative emotions are versions of the same illusion. That's why the Course taught very clearly before all the borrowers came along that fear and love are the only emotions of which you are capable. So all those emotions are actually fear. They're all under that one heading. People who borrow from the Course instead of teaching it generally make one or two mistakes. Either they try to make up a secular version of the Course, which doesn't work, because when you leave out God, you're ignoring the one real problem and the seeming separation from Him. Or they make up a version that includes God, but in a dualistic system. This also fails to solve the one real problem because of the very nature of duality. How can you undo the separation from God by believing that God created and acknowledges separation? Thus, they end up wasting a lot of time by reinforcing the seeming separation rather than correcting it. Persa, so what is the nature of the ego that you carry in your unconscious and that it doesn't want you to look at? Gary says, I thought you'd never ask. Persis says, wise guy, its nature is hatred. Even if they see the hatred, which most people rationalise or gloss over, they still don't realise, as you've already stated, astutely pointed out, that it's really self-hatred. Now, this is such an important point because this hatred, you have to recognise it, you have to notice it and welcome it and not be scared of it. So you and others see people in the world who hate, attack and even kill each other, and who would hurt or even kill you if they got the chance. The variations of this are endless. It can be as simple as being made uncomfortable by people you disagree with, personally or politically. It can show up in the form of people at work who try to make your life difficult, or relatives who don't encourage you. Or then there can be situations that are more physically threatening. But always it's a case where you look, where you took the hatred you have for yourself for throwing away heaven and made up a world where the reasons for this hatred, your guilt and lack of peace, could now be seen outside yourself, almost always connected in some way to other beings. I'm going to stop there. And I'm not sure, next week I'm going to read from the Disappearance of the Universe for a few sessions, just make my comments. So nearly time to finish here. Thank you so much for joining with me today. And I'm just going to read another lesson to finish off. Only an instant does this world endure. This is lesson 300. This is a thought which can be used to say that death and sorrow are the certain lot of all who come here, for their joys are gone before they are possessed or even grasped. Yet this is also the idea that lets no false perception keep us in its hold, nor represent more than a passing cloud upon a sky eternally serene. And it is this serenity we seek, unclouded, obvious and sure today. We seek your holy world today, for we, your loving sons, have lost our way a while, and we have listened to your voice and learned exactly what to do to be restored to heaven and our true identity. And we give thanks today. The world endures but for an instant. We would go beyond that tiny instant to eternity. So I'll finish up. I love you, I bless you, I honour you, and thanks for joining today. And I'll give the mic back. So blessings of love. Love you. Bye-bye.